"No fear," said Diggory. "We want to stay and see what happens. I thought you wanted to know about other worlds. Don't you like it now, here?" "Like it?" exclaimed Uncle Andrew. "Just look at the state I'm in. And it was my best coat and waistcoat, too." He certainly was a dreadful sight by now, for, of course, the more dressed up you were to begin with, the worse you look after you've crawled out of a smashed hansom cab and fallen into a muddy brook. "I'm not saying," he added, "that this is not a most entertaining place. If I were a younger man now, perhaps I could get some lively young fellow to come here first, one of those big game hunters. Something might be made of this country. The climate is delightful. I never felt such air. I believe it would have done me good if circumstances had been more favorable. If only we had a gun." "Guns be blowed," said the cabby. "I think I'll go and see if I can give Strawberry a rub-down. That horse has more sense than some humans I have mentioned." He walked back to Strawberry and began making hissing noises that grooms make. "Do you think that lion could be killed by a gun?" asked Diggory. He didn't mind the iron bar much. "With all her faults," said Uncle Andrew, "that's a plucky gal, my boy. It was a spirited thing to do." He rubbed his hands and cracked his knuckles, as if he were once more forgetting how the witch frightened him whenever she was really there. "It was a wicked thing to do," said Polly. "What harm has he done her?" "Hello, what's that?" said Diggory. He had darted forward to examine something only a few yards away. "I say, Polly," he called back, "do come and look." Uncle Andrew came with her, not because he wanted to see, but because he wanted to keep close to the children. There might be a chance to steal one of their rings. But when he saw what Diggory was looking at, even he began to take an interest. It was a perfect little model of a lamp-post, about 3 feet high, but lengthening and thickening in proportion. As they watched it, in fact, it was growing just as the trees had grown. "It's alive. It's lit," said Diggory. And so it was, though of course the brightness of the sun made the little flame in the lantern hard to see unless your shadow fell upon it. "Remarkable, most remarkable," muttered Uncle Andrew. "Even I never dreamed of magic like this. We're in a world where everything, even a lamp-post, comes to life and grows. Now I wonder what sort of speed a lamp-post grows from. Don't you see, Diggory? This is where the bar fell. The bar she tore off the lamp-post at home. It sank into the ground, and now it's coming up as a young lamp-post. But not so very young now. It was as tall as Diggory when he said this." "That's it. Stupendous, stupendous," said Uncle Andrew, rubbing his hands harder than ever. "Ho, ho, they laughed at my magic. That fool of a sister of mine thinks I'm a lunatic. I wonder what they'll say now. I've discovered a world where everything is bursting with life and growth. Columbus, now they talk about Columbus. But what was America to this? The commercial possibilities of this country are unbounded. Bring a few old bits of scrap iron here, bury them, and up comes a brand new railway engine, battleships, anything you please. They'll cost nothing, and I can sell them full prices in England. I'll be a millionaire. And then the climate. I feel years younger already. I can run at its health resort. A good sanctum here could be worth $20,000 a year. Of course, I shall have to let a few people into the secret. The first thing is to get that brute shot." "You're just like the witch," said Polly. "All you think of is killing things. And then, as one regards oneself," Andrew continues in a happy dream, "there's no knowing how long I might live if I settle here. That's the big consideration when a fellow has turned 60. I shouldn't be surprised if I never grow a day older in this country. Stupendous, the land of youth." "Oh," cried Diggory, "the land of youth. Do you really think it is?" For of course he remembered what Aunt Letty had said to the lady who brought the grapes, and the sweet hope that rushed back upon him. "Uncle Andrew," he said, "do you think there's anything here that would cure Mother?" "What are you talking about?" said Uncle Andrew. "This isn't a chemist's shop." "But as I was saying, you don't care about her," said Diggory savagely. "I thought you might, after all. She's your sister as well as my mother." "Well, no matter. I'm jolly well going to ask the lion himself if he can help me." And he turned and walked briskly away. Polly waited for a minute and then went after him. "Here, stop, come back. The boy's gone mad," said Uncle Andrew. He followed the children at a cautious distance behind, for he didn't want to get too far away from green rings or too near the lion. In a few minutes, Diggory came to the edge of the wood and then stopped. The lion was singing still, but now the song once more had changed. It was more like what we would call a tune, but it was far wilder. It made you want to run and jump and climb. It made you want to shout. It made you want to rush at other people and either hug them or fight them. It made Diggory hot and red in the face. It had some effect on Uncle Andrew, for Diggory could hear him say, "A spirited gal, it's a pity about her temper. A fine woman all the same." But what the song did do to two humans was nothing compared with what it was doing to the country. Can you imagine a stretch of grassy land bubbling like a water in a pot? For that is really the best description of what was happening. In all directions it was spelling into humps. They were of very different sizes, some no bigger than molehills, some as big as wheelbarrows, to the sides of cottages. And the humps moved and swelled until they burst, and the earth, and then crumbled earth poured out of them. And from each hump there came an animal. The moles came out just as you might see a mole come out of England. The dogs came out, barking the moment their heads were free, and struggling as you seen them do when they are getting through a narrow hole in a hedge. The stags were the queerest to watch, for, of course, the antlers came up long before the rest of them. So at first, Diggory thought there were trees. The frogs, who all came up near the river, went straight into the plop, plop, and the loud croaking. The panthers, leopards, and things of that sort sat down at once to wash the loose earth off their hindquarters, and then stood up against the trees to sharpen their front claws. Showers of birds came out of the trees. Butterflies fluttered. Bees got to work on the flowers as if they hadn't had a second to lose. But the greatest moment of all was when the biggest hump broke like a small earthquake and came out sloping back, the large wise head and four baggy-trousered legs of elephants. And now you could hardly hear the song of the lion. There was so much cawing, cooing, crowing, braying, neighing, baying, barking, lowing, bleating, and trumpeting. But though Diggory could no longer hear the lion, he could see it. It was so big and so bright that he could not take his eyes off it. The other animals did not appear to be afraid of it. Indeed, at that very moment, Diggory heard the sound of hoofs from behind. A second later, the old cab horse trotted past him and joined the beasts. The air had apparently suited him as well as it suited Uncle Andrew. He no longer looked like a poor old slave. He had been in London. He was picking up his feet and holding his head erect. And now, for the first time, the lion went quite silent. He was going to and from among the animals. Every now and then, he would go up to two of them and touch their noses with his. He would touch two beavers among all the beavers, two leopards among all the leopards, one stag and one deer among the deer, and leave the rest. Some sort of animal he passed over altogether, but the pairs which he touched instantly left their own kinds and followed him. At last he stood still, and all the creatures whom he had touched came and stood in a wide circle around him. The others whom he had not touched began to wander away. Their noises faded gradually into the distance. The chosen beasts who remained were now utterly silent, all with their eyes fixed intently on the lion. The cat-like ones gave an occasional twitch of the tail, but otherwise were all still. For the first time that day, there was complete silence except for the noise of running water. Diggory's heart beat wildly. He knew something very solemn was going to be done. He had not forgotten about his mother, but he knew jolly well that even for her, he couldn't interrupt a thing like this. The lion, whose eyes never blinked, stared at the animals as hard as he could, as if he was going to burn them up with a mere stare. And gradually a change came over them. The smaller ones, the rabbits, the moles, and such, grew a good deal larger. The big ones, you noticed it mostly with the elephants, grew a little smaller. Many animals sat up on their hind legs. Most put their heads on one side as if they were trying very hard to understand. The lion opened his mouth, but no sound came from it. He was breathing out a long, warm breath. It seemed to sway all the other beasts as the winds sway a line of trees. Far overhead, from beyond the veil of blue sky, which hid them, the stars were saying again a pure, cold, difficult music. Then there came a swift flash like a fire, either from the sky or from the lion itself, and every drop of blood tingled in the children's body. And the deepest, wildest voice they ever heard was saying, "Narnia, Narnia, awake, love, think, speak, be walking trees, be talking beasts, be divine waters." All right, and we will continue tomorrow.